Meghan Markle is paying the high Hollywood price of toxicity. In the wonderful world of entertainment, you can bob, weave, dodge and dive, but in the end, mud always sticks. And after Vanity Fair shredded what was left of her already tarnished reputation, the so-called difficult Duchess's plummeting career has turned into a full-on car crash, with her projects falling like skittles. Now, the podcast that was meant to be at the centre of a busy and prosperous start to the year has been indefinitely delayed, following reported refusals from Taylor Swift, Beyoncé and Megan Thee Stallion. The second series of Ms. Markle's worthy bore-fest archetypes is on permanent hold. Thank God for that, many might say. The first 12 episodes, saturated with stupefying psychobabble claptrap, were so toweringly tedious, Spotify cancelled the Sussex's $20 million contract. Now, behind the gilded gates of Meghan's massive mansion in the sun, dark clouds are gathering. She is said to be devastated by the 8,000-word Vanity Fair article that branded her a bullying boss from hell, whose awful treatment of staff forced one traumatised employee into long-term therapy. This ruinous avalanche of disastrous publicity comes in the painful slipstream of a headline-hitting investigation by the respective Hollywood Reporter, in which ex-Montecito minions dismissed Meg as a tyrant in high heels, prone to 5 a.m. tantrums, who reduced grown men to tears. The growing throng of those who quit and split call themselves the Sussex Survivors Club. Add to that the serious bullying allegations by distraught palace workers when the demanding American was still a frontline royal in Britain, and it seems clear that an unpleasant picture is emerging. As a result, the beleaguered Duchess of Sussex is in a world of trouble. But it gets worse. Yet more appalling press greeted her Angel of Mercy antics, turning up with Harry for a photo op amid the smouldering wreckage of fire-ravaged Los Angeles. Angry locals labelled the shocked couple disaster tourists, grief grifters and tragedy vultures. Among the vocal critics were actress Justine Bateman and Sharon's daughter Kelly Osbourne. Preposterously, when Netflix pulled the plug on her cooking show With Love Meghan, shifting its release from early January to March the 4th, our selfless heroine announced that she was grateful for the delay, and I quote, "as we focus on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires in my home state of California." As if somehow the victims of the inferno would be lost without her. Of course, when Meghan offers the hand of help, invariably there's a camera nearby ready to record her theatrical generosity. But while the former cable actress appears to be maintaining the sudden postponements are her decision, could it be that cash-conscious companies like Netflix and podcast carrier Lemonada are risk-averse to the badly damaged Meghan brand in an increasingly hostile media environment? As her decline accelerates, the big question is, can the Duchess pull a rabbit out of the hat and, against the odds, somehow stage a comeback? She'd better hope so, because if she remains marooned in the showbiz doldrums, the outlook for her lifestyle site, American Riviera Orchard, is bleak. Launched last March, but still not open for business, the online store for people in need of expensive beige towels and pricey cutlery has been mired in legal wrangling and rows about trademarks. Even the name is in dispute. 10 months and not a single item sold. The portents are not great. Meanwhile, remote from Meg's mounting problems, Prince Harry continues his self-styled dragon slayer war against the tabloids and, according to Vanity Fair, has lost all interest in his ambitious wife's pursuit of fame and fortune in Tinseltown. The sad irony is that as a senior member of the British royal family and still fifth in line to the throne, Harry will always be a star. But the way things are going, with her desperate celebrity dream in tatters, will poor Meghan ever make the grade? You decide.
Now, a couple of matters arising about Prince Andrew this morning. I mean, he seems to have had quite a few more sort of Chinese contacts than we ever thought, but also a story over the weekend suggesting that the Financial Conduct Authority have filed some documentation in which it suggests that Prince Andrew was in contact with Jeffrey Epstein via email for a lot longer than anybody thought.
Yeah, it was thought that Prince Andrew said that the last time he spoke to him in December, can't remember exactly what year, but then 3 months later, he was still having communication with Jeffrey Epstein. And in it was sort of one of the emails was saying, let's get together and maybe play soon. So whatever that means, I've no idea, but we're not sure. It's thought that email came from Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
But then it just always the spotlight is on him for his choice of friends. And again, his choice of friends with China is another area that, of course, has put him under the very severe spotlight. When he was the international envoy on behalf of Britain, going around the world trying to drum up business, but his choice of friends seems to have once again created problems. And there's even thoughts that the British royal family were encouraging him to try and have those links with China. But obviously we're seeing subsequently that China may have had some ulterior motives and saw him as a
You don't
soft
say.
touch.
I mean, why else would they want to get involved with a guy who could get them inside the Houses of Parliament sort of estate, which is what he appeared to have been able to do? There were lots of pictures that emerged, weren't there, of that guy who was basically more or less declared to be a spy. But it turns out he's probably not the only one.
No, and this is the problem for Prince Andrew. His choice of friends in the pursuit of money and his lifestyle. I mean, the only problem, one of his problems is his arrogance. He's convinced of his rightness. So whatever he does, he won't listen to advice. And perhaps people might have tried to have a word in his shell light, but didn't actually get past go. So this was part of the problem for him, in that he was always thought he knew best. And his choice of friends, he thought he could brazen out his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That is proved misguided, and one or two others. And now he's just holed up in Royal Lodge, occasionally seen on a horse, not living the life that he feels he's entitled to.
Well, exactly right. I mean, one of the sort of the conflicts of truth that would appear to have emerged from this is that in the interview he did with Emily Maitlis on Newsnight 2019, he basically said he had not seen or spoken to Epstein following that meeting he had in New York with him in 2010. But this email exchange takes place in February 2011, in which it looks as though Epstein's asking Andrew for his schedule when he comes to London.
Well, and this is the problem. You know, what's going on here? You know, if he's saying one thing, you know, but unfortunately, that interview with Emily Maitlis, you can pick holes in a lot of things that went on in it.
Yeah.
And so, despite the fact he thought it had gone extremely well, but actually, that interview has been his downfall, his undoing, and it's continuing the revelations that are coming out. Prince Andrew continues to be a thorn in the royal family's side, and will not go away. And for the king, it must be deeply frustrating that their brother seems to always be dragging them through the mud because of his own stupidity.
Well, exactly. He even gets a mention in this new book, which has been taking the political world by storm this weekend. Patrick Maguire and Gabriel Pogren's book called Get In, which was serialised in the Sunday Times. You know, I'm not going to apologise for saying the word, but there is a context to it. Angela Rayner, apparently, as Deputy Leader of the Opposition, had got involved after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and she basically urged Buckingham Palace and the upper echelons of the civil service to exclude Prince Andrew from royal service on the grounds that she said that he was a nonce.
Well, again, not a good look.
No, not really.
For Prince Andrew, Angela Rayner wading into criticism, and also his role within the as a Councillor of State, questioning should he be one of those. So when the king's away, he could be one of the people who steps up and is responsible, you know, sort of doing the king's duty on his, while the king may be out of the country or indisposed. And obviously Prince Harry was also a Councillor of State. So therefore you get this problem for the royal family, and obviously the Labour Party, like many were concerned about Prince Andrew's involvement and his friends that he associated with. And Angela Rayner, not one to mince words, not everyone agrees with her. I'm sure you're not one who's got Angela Rayner on speed dial for a dinner party.
Listen, I'd like to invite her to dinner, but she's blocked me on Twitter, I'm afraid, so I can't get in touch with her.
Well, you live in hope. Never say never, Mike.
No.
But I don't see it happening anytime soon.
No.
But anyway, on that note, what the point is for Prince Andrew, it is further poor PR on his behalf, and that actually shows how far he is having any chance of being rehabilitated in the eyes of the British public.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Prince Harry's visa application is a long-running story. When he came to live in America, or when he went to live in America, when was it, 2020-ish, 4 or 5 years ago, he had to fill out his residency visa. Now, you often have to fill them out even when you're visiting. Now, one of the questions is, do you take drugs? Have you taken drugs? Have you ever taken drugs? Most people just say no, but Harry is in an interesting situation because he wrote in his book, Spare, about his love of cannabis, cocaine and magic mushrooms. So he's taken all of those. So his answer to the visa question should have been, yes, I have taken drugs. If it was, yes, I have taken drugs, why was he allowed to stay in America? Why was he allowed to live there? Because I wouldn't be allowed to, normal people wouldn't be allowed to. Was the land of the equal and the free guilty of kowtowing, forelock touching to a British aristocrat, because it shouldn't have been. And if he didn't put that down, if he did what most people did and told a white lie or a lie and said, no, I've never taken drugs, then that's a federal offence for which many believe he should be kicked out of America. In fact, Donald Trump, the president, has considered as much. Now, the Heritage Foundation, an excellent think tank in Washington, has been pursuing that case for some time now, and it's going back to court in a whole new atmosphere. That whole new atmosphere is Donald Trump's presidency. The Democrat president, for some reason, the party of the people, Joe Biden, basically said, oh, no, be me ever so humble, sir. You can live here as long as you like, Well, Donald Trump says no. He says he's not going to, Donald Trump says, I'm not going to protect him. If he's lied on that form, or if, he somehow or other was allowed to stay when he shouldn't have been, he said, I won't protect him. Donald Trump does not forgive Prince Harry for the way him and Meghan treated the late, great Queen. Well, let's go across to Washington and talk to the man who's been spearheading this long-running legal battle. He's the director of the Heritage Foundation, Niall Gardner. Welcome to the show, Niall.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks very much, Kevin.
Well, first of all, I've got a few clips of Donald Trump and his attitude to Harry and Meghan, which will play in the course of time. But first of all, explain you're going back to court. Explain the difference, or why you feel that going back to court now under President Trump will make a world of difference. Because frankly, under the forelock touching presidency of Joe Biden, you got every door slammed in your face. You think now that you may finally get the court to open up his visa application so the public can see it? Transparency in the American tradition. You think it may happen now?
Well, we believe in transparency and accountability, Kevin, and it's our view at the Heritage Foundation that Prince Harry's immigration records should be released to the American people. And we have urged President Trump to release Harry's records. The president has the executive authority to do so. As you've pointed out, of course, President Trump has commented on the Prince Harry immigration case previously. And we believe that there is a firm U.S. national interest in the release of his records. So we will be continuing to urge that directly to the president, but also through the courts as well. There is another federal court hearing taking place this Wednesday in the Washington D.C. federal court, and we will continue to make the case that Harry's records should be released for everyone to see. And we believe that if Harry lied on his immigration application, that's a criminal offence, and he should face deportation if he lied on his application. So let's see exactly what Harry had to say on his application. In his book Spare, his own memoir, he talked about extensive illegal drug use. Harry should be held to account, just like anyone else.
Yes, indeed. And of course, if he owned up in his visa application, I'm a big fan of cannabis, cocaine and magic mushrooms, which is what he wrote in his book Spare, then that would open up a can of worms as well, wouldn't it? Because, if I put, I'm a big fan of smoking dope and snorting coke, they wouldn't let me into the country. So if he was honest, on his visa application, the question then would be, why was he allowed to take up residence over there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. And there's a strong possibility as well that Harry may have received preferential treatment with regard to his application. And all we're saying is that these records should be released and made public, so the American people can judge for themselves exactly what's in those records. But as President Trump has made clear previously, if Harry lied on his application, appropriate action would be taken, in Trump's own words. And President Trump has promised to strictly enforce U.S. immigration law. And so it doesn't matter if you're a prince, you should be held to the same standards as anyone else applying to live and reside in the United States. And so I think Harry has made it very clear in his own memoir that he has used a wide array of illegal drugs, and he should be held fully to account, just like anybody else. And there's a firm public interest in his records being made open to the American public. So all we're calling for here is transparency, accountability, and for the rule of law to be applied equally to anyone who seeks to enter the United States or live in the United States.
Well, yes, I mean, and if he lied on his visa application to reside in America, in effect, he becomes an illegal migrant. And we know what Donald Trump thinks about illegal migrants, don't we? So deportation might be on the cards. But let's remind ourselves of President Trump's attitude to Harry and Meghan. This is him talking about the two of them potentially being kicked out. Have a listen to this.
And we'll have to see if they know something about the drugs, and if he lied, he'll have to take appropriate action.
Which might mean not staying.
Oh, Harry is whipped. Do you know the expression whipped?
I'm familiar with the phrase.
I won't use the full expression. But Harry is whipped like no person I think I've ever seen. I'm not a fan of Meghan.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, and I wasn't right from the beginning. I think poor Harry is being led around by his nose, okay?
You think he's going to end?
I do. I've been a very good predictor, as you know. I predicted almost everything. It'll end, and it'll end bad. And I wonder if Harry's going to go back on his hands and knees and say, please. I'm not a fan of hers. And I would say this, and she probably has heard that, but I wish a lot of luck to Harry, because he's going to need it.
Well, I think, Niall, we'll get an idea of what the president thinks about Harry and Meghan, because, of course, politically, they're everything he despises. They are woke West Coasters. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose, but not likely to endear you to President Trump. Was it, Niall, the publication of Spare, Harry's extraordinary tell-all autobiography, that caused you to do this, when you saw him boasting about drug taking, and I guess making money out of that boast? Did you think, well, hang on a second, there's something not quite right? Was it the book that inspired you to do this?
Yes, actually, it was Prince Harry's own revelations in his memoir that really prompted us to seek the release of Harry's immigration records. Initially, of course, the Department of Homeland Security under the Biden administration refused to do so, and then we took them to federal court, and we took them to court twice actually, and there's the third hearing, of course, this week. The fact is that Prince Harry has done a great deal, of course, to, I think, undermine the royal family. He is also, I think, if he lied on his application, he will have made a mockery of the US immigration system. And the Heritage Foundation, of course, is the leading supporter in the United States of a strong and robust US immigration system that ensures that America's borders are safe and secure. We're also the home of the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom, which advances the US-UK special relationship. And if Harry has lied on his application about all of his drug use, he will be, I think, damaging the US-UK special relationship. He's already undermined the royal family. Both he and Meghan have made relentless attacks upon the reputation of the royal family. We believe that the American people have a right to know whether Harry was truthful or not, because lying on an immigration application is a federal offense. That's a criminal offense. And anyone involved in doing so would be subject to deportation. And the American people, I'm sure, would demand the deportation of Prince Harry if he lied on his application. So the stakes are very high here. The Biden administration fought tooth and nail against the release of the records. You have to ask, why did they do that? Actually, they went to great lengths to hide the contents of Harry's immigration records, and we're simply asking for transparency here, and for the American people to have the right to see what Harry himself put on his own record. And let's see what Harry had to say.
Well, you've lived in America for a while. I lived over on the West Coast for the best part of a decade, and what struck me about Biden's attitude, or his approach to the Harry visa issue, was it was un-American. You know, the whole point about America is every man is equal, and of course woman. And the idea that some British aristocrat should get special treatment is just not the American way. And what did you make of Biden? I mean, he went to great lengths to try and block your legal efforts, didn't he? Why do you think that was, and what did you make of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think the Biden presidency was an absolute disaster for the United States, and their handling of the Prince Harry case is an illustration of that. And let's not forget that 12 million people crossed the US border illegally under Joe Biden. So that their track record on border enforcement is absolutely terrible. And the fact that they fought so hard against the release of Prince Harry's records suggests that there is something to hide with regard to his application. And with the new US administration in place, we sincerely hope that the Trump administration is going to release Harry's records. And as you mentioned, Kevin, the American people do not like to see preferential treatment being given to somebody, in this case, a prince, with regard to his immigration application. The Americans are very much against that kind of preferential treatment. Everyone should be treated in the same way. And the vast majority of the American people want to see U.S. immigration law strictly enforced as well. And so Harry, who has in many ways behaved like a political activist alongside Meghan Markle here in the United States, Harry should be fully held to account, actually, for what he put on his immigration application. And that's the right thing to do. The rule of law matters and should be applied equally and without favor.
Before you go, Niall, here's another little clip that may make things a little difficult for Harry going forward. This is Meghan's take on Donald Trump. Take it away, Meghan.
Yes, of course Trump is divisive. Think about just female voters alone, right? Yeah. I mean, I think it was in 2012, the Republican Party lost the female vote by 12 points. That's a huge number. And with as misogynistic as Trump is and so vocal about it, that's a huge chunk of it. You're not just voting for a woman if it's Hillary just because she's a woman.
Yeah, that's Meghan's take. I mean, as a backdrop to your legal campaign, Niall, the political attitudes of West Coast Meghan and now West Coast Harry may present them with problems because they stand for everything that Donald Trump doesn't. And I've noticed that since his re-emergence, as it were, that they've been a little less critical loudly in public of him. But in the past, they couldn't wait to slap him down. And, you know, old Donald, he's a pragmatist, but he won't forget that, will he?
No, I don't think he will. And the reality is that, you know, Meghan Markle in particular has made a number of very nasty comments about Donald Trump in the past. She has been, as you pointed out, rather quiet recently. But for many years, she and Harry have been woke left-wing political activists, and they have been noticeably quieter in recent months. And they've been a lot more careful. But Meghan's track record is there for all to see. And frankly, Prince Harry has gone along, I think, with a lot of Meghan's nasty comments, and her attacks on President Trump are absolutely awful, and they're all there on record. And at the end of the day, Meghan and Harry, they do see themselves as sort of political activists as well, and they represent sort of out of touch, super elite, woke liberal America. And there's a new sheriff in town with President Trump, actually, who really speaks for the American people.
Well, as the recent election proved, no one is listening to Meghan and Harry and their ilk. Last question, Niall. When are you in court? When does the actual next hearing happen?
So the next hearing takes place on Wednesday here in Washington, D.C. at 2 p.m. U.S. time. That's 7 p.m. UK time. But at the same time, we are urging President Trump to release the records himself, and I think there's a very, very strong possibility that he will do so. He's taken a very close interest in this case. My view is that there's a very strong likelihood that President Trump will intervene himself.
Yeah, I mean, we were hit like a dump truck by some of these Tom Quinn allegations, but also a full backflip from the judge when it comes to Prince Harry's visa paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to cover both of those. I told you I used to be Tom Quinn's boss. He worked for me at the Daily Mirror, and now he's an eminent royal author. So it just goes to show everybody that works for me does better than I do. Piers Morgan. I was Piers Morgan's boss once.
Oh wow, that's so funny! I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll tell you all about it next week. Anyway, right. Let's talk first, though, before we get to those important stories that you've just mentioned, about Meghan. She's released a video. She's basically turned, in my view, the horror, the tragedy of the Los Angeles fires that so many people died in, so many people lost their homes in, into happy, snappy, cute content for her Instagram site.
Oh, my God.
Well, first of all, let's just watch it with an increasing sense of dismay, if you agree with me. Take it away, Ms. Markle.
Just told that something arrived that I have been waiting for. Oh my God. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, when my husband and I were in Altadena, we went to a community where all the homes were left in ashes. This mom had found a couple things, and as I was talking to her, I turned and looked and I saw this young woman, and I said, "Oh my gosh, how old are you?" She's 15. She lives there. And her mom shared something with me and said that when they came back to see their house for the first time, which was as we were meeting them, that all that she'd been looking for in her home was the t-shirt from the Billie Eilish concert that she had just gone to, that she left in the washing machine or the dryer. And of course, they now see their home and the washing machine and the dryer are ash. They're not there anymore. And so I said, well, I don't know Billie Eilish, but I'm going to figure out how to get you this shirt. So I thought of everybody that I knew, and I made a voice note, and I was like, please, can someone get this voice note to Billie Eilish? Here's what I'm asking. You guys, I don't even know what all of this stuff means, but it's signed for her. Is that a thing? The lunchbox thing? I don't know. This is when I feel really old. Huge thank you, Billie Eilish. This is going to mean so much to her. And honestly, to Adam Levine and Bahati, you guys helped get this over the line. To everyone who's showing up for people in big and small ways to get through what's happened in California, just thank you so much. I'm going to go and email her mom now. Just wanted to share that with you guys.
I barely know what to say, Kinsey, but when is this woman going to get the memo that people do not want to see her turning the Los Angeles tragedy, the catastrophe of California, into good publicity for herself? First of all, her and Harry, as she said 2 or 3 weeks ago, they turn up for a photo op, traipsing through the ashes of people's destroyed homes, enraging many people in Los Angeles, particularly the victims. Justine Bateman, the actress, and Sharon's daughter, Kelly Osbourne, among them, just recording videos to say, well, this is disaster tourism. These two are ghouls. They are tragedy vultures. You know, what on earth do they think they're doing? Grief grifters, they were called. She just sort of closes her ears to that. The next day, she's filmed going back there, you know, generously, oh so generously and filmically, being caught on camera as always, with big bags of supplies for those made homeless. People going, shut up with her, stop doing this, but she won't listen to this, and now she's doing it again. I mean, this is crass and inappropriate. You know, and by the way, you know, why didn't, you know, Billie Eilish doesn't have to send her merchandise to Meghan. She could have sent it directly to the girl. You know, and the whole premise of this is somehow or other that the mother is distraught about losing her home, as you would be, but worse than that, she's lost her washing machine, and in which was a Billie Eilish T-shirt that her 15-year-old daughter liked. You know, I would imagine that woman probably wasn't that bothered about the T-shirt, and I wouldn't imagine that a sensible 15-year-old would be either. I mean, you know, talk about over the top. Oh, look. I mean, she's so tone deaf. I mean, if you're watching Meghan, just stop this. Stop humiliating yourself. It's awful to watch, isn't it?
I mean, I really thought just reimagine the beach video where we could see the 2025 written in the sand multiple times. So imagine how she looks so frazzled and she's like, you know, running her hands through her hair and trying to make it look authentic and chaotic. Imagine how many times that was shot. Realistically, knowing how many times she shot the beach video with the 2025 written in the sand. You know, you don't have to announce everything nice that you do for other people, and you certainly don't have to name drop multiple celebrities along the way. She is so insecure and so desperate to be liked. She is so desperate to feel like she is in the circle, and she reeks of it. And it's hard to take anything she does over the next few days, and that's including Invictus, as anything sincere when you know that her relationship with Netflix really relies on the success of this show coming out in March. It feels like even that pathetic video of this person's entire house burned down, I got them some Billie Eilish merch.
Sorry, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
I know.
It's just so crass.
Yeah, you know, it feels like it's all in preparation to promote. I'd like to take the ordinary and make extraordinary. I like to make people feel special. Yeah. Well, you're giving them your house in Portugal might make them feel a little bit more special than the Billie Eilish merch, Meghan Markle, but it all feels like it's in promotion for her show, and that just feels icky and dirty.
Yeah, so why is she filming? Why is she taking the LA fires and turning it into content for her Instagram account? Content that, of course, makes her look good. You know, in Meghan's world, good deeds must not only be done, they must be seen to be done. Look at me. Look at me being wonderful. Aren't I wonderful? Not particularly, Meghan. Quite the opposite, actually. But the reason she's doing this is to try to escape the shackles of Vanity Fair's 8,000-word report that labelled her a dreadful bully who reduced her staff to a traumatic state, so much so that one of them had to go into long-term therapy, following on from the bullying allegations in The Hollywood Reporter last September. 12 former employees, one current actually, all saying that she was a tyrant in high heels who reduced staff to tears, to grown men to tears, prone to 5 a.m. tantrums, all of this, plus the bullying allegations. So basically, back in Britain when she was working here, so basically she's trying to blot that out and say, no, I'm lovely. Well, good luck with that. She's toxic in Hollywood. But the reason she's trying to do that, as you quite rightly say, March the 4th, out comes Meghan with Love. And as you can work out, while the people all over the world, America, Britain, all over the world, struggling in the cost of living crisis, will be heartened to tune in to Meghan with Love to find out how to make ladybird-shaped canapes. I mean, she is so out of touch, it's almost tragic, isn't it?
It's unfortunate, but I think that the show is one thing, but to try to market yourself off of somebody's worst day and worst period of their life is really just, and I can't comprehend it whatsoever. You need to move on from this, Meghan. You need to, unless they're going to do something significant and plan a big gala or a big benefit or something that would make a sincere impact in the same way that Kevin Costner does this event every year for first responders in the Santa Barbara area. Unless they can do something to that extent and use the platform that the British royal family presented them on a silver platter, neither one of those individuals earned their position. I think that they just need to move on from milking other people's tragedy because it looks vulgar and crass. And I'm surprised that somebody hasn't sat her down and said, we're changing your Instagram password. You can no longer have access to it.
I mean, I suspect that, to be fair to the publicists and the PRs that she employs, I suspect they probably have told her, you know, be a bit careful here. But you know what she's like. She won't listen to anyone. She thinks she knows what she's doing. The tragedy is she doesn't. Let's park Meghan there for the time being. And we'll come on to her history when she was at the Palace in Britain a little later in terms of this new book by Tom Quinn. But first, let's talk about a more pressing issue, perhaps, for the gruesome twosome up there in Montecito. This visa crisis of Harry is getting real. We know that the Heritage Foundation, Niall Gardner, by the way, the director of the Heritage Foundation, came onto my show on Monday to say that on Wednesday they would be returning to court to apply for the details of Harry's residency visa application to live in America to be made public, on the basis that subsequent to that visa application, he wrote in his book that he was a keen smoker of cannabis, a keen used cocaine, and a keen user of magic mushrooms. These are all illegal drugs, and you shouldn't have taken any drugs when you come to America. And if you put that on your visa application, why was he allowed in? And if he pretended he didn't take drugs, then he lied. And that is a federal offence, lying on a visa application. But Joe Biden, crawl ass that he was, he said, oh no, he's safe, he can stay here forever. Donald Trump says I'm not going to protect him. So the reality is now, after the court case yesterday, a judge made it pretty clear that most of the details on Harry's visa application could well now soon be made public. Now, if that is the case, and Donald Trump is true to his word, Harry's days in America may be numbered.
Oh, I mean, that is the conversation that's happening here. Even when I try to pump the brakes and say, look, I know that Melania, our first lady, is very close to King Charles. They're pen pals. I don't know if they want to jeopardize that relationship. The media I talk to over here want to blow past that as quickly as possible and say, well, but Donald Trump said this. Yes, he's very tough on immigration. Prince Harry very well could be the poster boy for the toughest president on immigration, to boot a member of the royal family. It is one of the most significant immigration cases we've seen in the United States. It involves a prince and a Hollywood actress. There's no way in hell Meghan Markle's going to return to the UK. So there's all these questions about where do they go from here? How does that negatively affect her business? I'm being asked. And I was like, I don't think it affects her business as much as it affects her marriage.
What business?
Yeah, exactly. Because she doesn't want to go back to the UK. And Prince Harry has gone back several times solo. So, yeah, I mean, I think, though, that it's incredibly interesting that once the Trump administration is back in charge, this Trump-appointed judge who had private correspondence with Biden's administration before making his determination has suddenly changed his mind now that Trump is back in charge. So it makes you wonder, and I'm not accusing him of anything, but was his last decision, his last judgment, based on any sort of politics coming from the Biden administration? What did they say to him in the secret correspondence that the Heritage Foundation is trying to get access to that made him deny the Heritage Foundation this access? He has changed his tune. He's saying, now I think I'm going to allow you to see it. What changed?
Niall Gardner put it that, you know, as you say in America, there's a new sheriff in town, and that changes everything. And Niall was saying they're very confident that they will at last get this information. It will be made public to the American people. And if he lied on his visa application, as Donald Trump said, I ain't going to protect him. That means he has to be kicked out. Interesting times. Now, before you go, Kinsey, there's a new book out, as I say, by an old friend of mine, Tom Quinn. It's basically about the servants who work at the British palaces, what they see and what they hear. And you sent me quite a long excerpt, which was actually an extremely good read. Sounds to me as if Tom's found, you know, some very good sources. What are the takeaways of it in terms of Meghan?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways for me was this idea. I don't completely agree that Prince William and Prince Harry's hostility towards each other began to develop because of Meghan Markle's cuddliness, hugging, and physicalness when it comes to Prince William. That's what Tom Quinn says. Because Prince Harry himself says the hostility developed because of Prince William accusing Meghan of being a bully. However, I do believe the flirting allegations, which Tom Quinn mentions here, that because Meghan was so affectionate towards Prince William, hugging him every time she saw him, kissing him on the face every time she saw him, it made Prince William uncomfortable. It made the king uncomfortable and Catherine. The book says that the servants were gossiping, saying that it was inappropriate. They felt like Meghan was flirting with Prince William. I do believe that. We've heard, bits and pieces of that over the last few years. But I disagree that that is where the issue started with William and Harry. I think William was like, actually, your wife's a jerk. Like, I think that's really what that was about.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, and he said he advised Harry not to marry her, and that's when they began to fall out in no uncertain terms. But there are interesting snippets in it that Harry was regarded by the servants as a nice guy, insofar as, rather than just order them around, he always said, oh, would you mind doing this? Would you mind? She turned up. I'm not sure if this is an American attitude.
It's not, because I say to people, would you mind doing this? And I'm paying them.
Well, what the book says, though, is that she came up with this attitude, we pay you. I don't have to be nice to you. I just issue you orders and you have to obey them. So she brought that into the royal houses. But I loved some of the details that you know, that Harry. The reason they're so different, Harry and Meghan, is that Harry, like all the royals, doesn't really care about possessions and houses and things like that, because they've always had loads of possessions, palaces all over the world. They don't really get materialism because they've got everything they'll ever need from the moment they're born. They never have to worry about money, they never have to worry about houses or anything like that. And so she came over saying, why is Nottingham Cottage so small? Why are we in this small cottage? Harry didn't even look, well, it's all right, isn't it? You know, he didn't care.
Yeah.
But she sort of stomped around, getting everybody more and more fed up. And he became more difficult in the process, and is still in.
Yeah, he had no idea he was the spare until she said, "You're the spare," is what they said. Also, really quickly, I know I loved the line about how Meghan expected to marry a billionaire and she got a millionaire. She was like disappointed in that. Like, oh my gosh.
What's the book called again, Kinsey? It's called Yes, Ma'am.
The book is called Yes, Ma'am: The Secret Life of Royal Servants.
Yeah, and then one other little snippet that I really liked. One servant saying that the royals are like babies. If one of them gets a gold pen or a new car, they all want one.
Well, I would.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. The thing is, you've got to remember, see, for all her faults, Meghan sort of comes from the real world, and Harry doesn't come from the real world. Harry comes from a world that the rest of us can't begin to imagine. And that is why he's now lost all interest in Meghan's pursuit of Hollywood fame and fortune. He just doesn't care. He wants to go on pretend royal tours and shake hands, doesn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. But they do say it would take him 2 weeks to get his trousers on by himself. So I think that's important to note.
Well, I understand, actually, in fairness to him, that he's learned to cope on his own far more now, and it now only takes him a week to get his trousers on. So things are getting better. Things are getting better. Good for you, Harry.
She is finished, and it's actually really sad because Meghan and Harry can basically do no right. Like, they came to, but they came to Los Angeles with basically a very enviable platter of things to choose from. They had Netflix knocking on their door. They had every production company wanting to do something with them. And they had all these so-called ideas, but they're quickly seeing the sun set on this. They've managed, basically within a couple years, to destroy their reputation. And I think the penultimate thing of this is that Vanity Fair has come out and trashed them and written a novella basically storying what a train crash their entire evolution into life without the royals has been. It's been really hard to watch, and I'm just thinking, yes, you're right, she's finished. But she also kept saying, oh, it's always the British tabloids that are after me. This time it's all American ones. She can't cry back to Harry saying, you know, all these British tabloids are coming to me. These are really reputable papers saying, Meghan, I'm sorry, we've found evidence that you're a terrible person and no one wants to work with you.
Yeah, the Hollywood Reporter and Vanity Fair are not tabloids. Vanity Fair, arguably America's most respected magazine, it does not deal in sensationalist journalism. And the thing is, Simon, you know, I know you always courageously defend Meghan, but in the world of media, this is what's happened. She was dogged by bullying allegations here in Britain. She then went to America, and the Hollywood Reporter talked to 12 former employees who told of her being a tyrant in high heels who bullied her. And now Vanity Fair, 8,000-word article. No sign of a denial, by the way, said that she's a terrible bully. It's so bad that one employee had to go into long-term therapy, that they were so traumatised. The point is, it's like I said at the beginning of the monologue, in showbiz, we all know that. You know that, I know this. You can dodge, you can dive, you can bob and weave, and you can avoid some of the flack. If it happens once, you can maybe get out of it. If it happens twice, if you're lucky, you get out of it. If it happens 3 times, that's 3 times unlucky. And frankly, in Hollywood, now everybody thinks she's a toxic bully. She's in big trouble.
Yeah, she is. I have to agree with you.
That's the end of the show.
I have to agree with you. Normally, when we fight about Harry and Meghan, there's some specific story that you've brought. We're arguing about how she should approach her family, whether there's going to be a rapprochement there or something like that. when you take the overall story of Harry and Meghan, and their onslaught to Hollywood, it's a disaster story. As I've forgotten your name. It's been a week. As Samara says after
Gil.
As Samara says,
As Gil says.
it's a car crash. And John Mulvaney, I've just read an American comic, has just made a big joke about them saying, never since Netflix threw 100 million to somebody without a plan. And I think that's kind of been their problem, is making TV as a TV producer, I know, is hard work. And you can't just slap executive producer credits on the end of what you do and think that's how you do it. Samara as well, TV producer.
And that's interesting, though. That's what they would have been used to. And why I was thinking about this in a more bigger perspective is without the royal family, obviously they are nothing, especially someone like Harry, but also Meghan, because they don't have that mechanism to actually be able to do that. They probably could have produced something, slapped their name on it back in the day when they were in the family, but they can't do that anymore. And the cart very quickly
They are
falls
horribly
off its wheels.
exposed, aren't they? They are horribly exposed. And look, I do think, and I will argue this ad infinitum, I do think that entrepreneurs try a lot of stuff entrepreneurs try a lot of stuff, they fail, and then they come good. What this is saying is get out of the media, get out of Hollywood.
Try something
That's
new.
what I think.
I agree with
That's
you.
what I think is coming back.
Try something new. That's what they've got to do. I mean, bear them no ill will. I hope it works out for them.
That's so disingenuous. You hope it works out for them.
Well, I always like a good story. You know what I mean? And you know what they say, everybody loves bad news. But seriously, they need to try something else. Look, their big problem all along, Harry, basically, I don't think he ever really cared about fame and fortune in Hollywood. And apparently now in the Vanity Fair magazine, he just couldn't care less. He's just not interested. He wants to do royal-type tours. And the source said he wants to kiss babies,
But Invictus works, doesn't
because
it?
it was
but that's a sort of charity project and full marks to him. No problem at all.
Yeah, but it was also
But that's
created
not
while he was in the
that's not
royal
a career.
family.
That's not a career.
No, but I do think coming up with stuff like that is something that Harry and Meghan could turn
absolutely. Good idea.
to doing. And
if they actually cared about people, which I don't think Meghan really does, it is really about her and her career.
Well, let's think about this. Let's think about Meghan's personality. We won't bother with the family, that she has ruthlessly dispatched
Cuts both ways.
into oblivion.
Cuts both ways.
All right, we'll accept your viewpoint too. Anyway, she comes from this feuding family, hasn't talked to her dad for 4 or 5 years or something, doesn't talk to her brother or sister. They are extremely suspicious of her. They say she's ruthless, she cuts people out of her life and all that. OK, fine. A lot of people come from feuding families. But look, let's talk about her personality. Bullies are not nice people. Now, I'm being slightly careful here, but I think after 3 publications or 3 serious sets of allegations of bullying, we have to accept this woman is a bully, and that is not very nice. She's not a nice person, is she, basically?
The thing is, it actually wouldn't matter if she's not a nice person, that's for sure. I mean, there are multiple accounts of that. But it actually wouldn't even matter if she was like a Charlize Theron type who's had lots of bullying allegations against her. The issue is that the brand that she tries to pan to people, this $2 shop Martha Stewart crap, that is actually... That is not conducive with the mean girl personality that's being broadcast out to everyone.
But maybe that's just it. Maybe, and I think Vanity Fair says this, maybe she's just a terrible boss and she's a terrible people person. I think it's very easy to be quite sort of dismissive of her and Harry coming out to help the neighbours.
I do find it easy
yes, I know you do. To come out and help
I find it very, very
come out and
easy.
help the neighbours. I think that she's possibly not a great boss, not a good people person, but I do think that her heart is in the right place, and I think that Harry's is as well.
I don't think her heart is in the right
I do
place.
think that.
I do think
that they are genuinely...
Her heart is all about her. It's all about her. She used Harry as a vehicle to make herself more famous than she deserves to be. Frankly, she, her ego is writing checks her talent can't cash. That's good, isn't it?
It's from Top Gun.
From Top Gun. Her ego is writing checks that her talent can't cash. That's why I get the small bucks. But seriously, that is true. I think she's pretty talentless. She's certainly not a producer. And in the Vanity Fair article, and I think the Hollywood Reporter as well, various former employees said if only she would listen to other people, then maybe some of her projects might have been more successful. Because, you know, if you're someone like Meghan, you know, sort of minor cable actress, you know, understand where you are in the Hollywood firmament and take on people who really know what they're doing. Apparently, the people who did join them, who are expert in the ways of Hollywood, were just dismissed time and time again. So she's got this aspect to her personality that she won't listen to other people. She thinks she knows it all, and she just doesn't. And her productivity so far, frankly, reveals quite a lack of talent. Don't you think, Samara?
I mean, it's classic D-list actress behaviour. It's always the small ones that act like the big fry in Hollywood. And I think she's quickly realising that she can't actually get away with it anymore. And yeah, no one wants to buy your sort of weird tea towels and pots of jam that you're trying to pan off to people. And it's not going to happen.
Well, you can't because
you can't because there is nothing.
American Riviera Orchard isn't open.
For people who don't want to buy it, you two are obsessed with the products on there.
I want to get some of the jam.
There you go. Somebody wants to buy it.
Towels.
Somebody wants to buy it.
Come on, Meghan.
After the Vanity Fair article, it's not going to happen.
Look, I agree with you. She's a very strong flavour. She's very difficult. She's very challenging, OK? Yeah. And if you are being tough on your staff and can be seen as a tyrant and bullying, that's not a great look. But I do also feel that they've got it harder. They have got it harder. The spotlight is on them. They don't have, as you just said, they don't have that protectiveness of the royal family where people aren't going to say if your stuff is crap, you know? They're out there trying to do that. And when you have failures and you're trying to do something and trying to make stuff work, when you fall and you're in the public eye like they are, that same... She might be a D-list actress, but she's married to a royal.
I mean, you
so
know,
therefore, everything looks bigger.
Cry me a river. Pass me the smallest violin in the world. I mean, in that 19-bathroom, massive mansion in the sun in Montecito, you know, I can't have too much sympathy
for them. Try and try things and be successful. You can't knock them for that.
I mean, he's untalented as well, but he's actually... I mean, he's lost the plot now, but he was a good royal. That he was good at being a royal.
He's warm and he's charismatic.
I think he realises that, and that's why he wants to go on these weird pretend royal tours.
No, he's warm.
And when they turned up in the smouldering ashes of fire-ravaged Los Angeles, I think he thought, well, this is what I do. You know, I visit people when there's been a disaster.
Yeah, but that's
and he's stunned. Well, not according to the people of Los Angeles. They're furious with them. They hated it. They thought that those two, and I've got a lot of sympathy for this viewpoint, were cashing in on tragedy to get a photo op.
No.
There's always a camera handy when she does nice things, isn't there?
There'll always be photographed. They're two of the most recognised, two of the most recognisable people on the planet.
Particularly when she takes a cameraman with her.
Yeah, they were among a sea of people. They brought a Netflix crew with them.
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Well, they took a Netflix crew.
I'll tell you what did happen, and this is documented. All the genuine workers who were helping there, all the people who were helping the effort there, were told to clear out, get out of the area, while Harry and Meghan walked through so they could look nice and kind of pristine for a picture.
That's disappointing if that is true.
Yeah. See?
That is disappointing.
Slowly we're persuading him. We're persuading him. Look, that was a photo op. And she went back the next day. She didn't get the memo. I mean, you know, I used to live there. I mentioned that. And I've got a lot of friends there. That city is seethingly furious with those two for what they did. No other celebrities did that.
Lots of celebrities have set up clothes drives and done things like that. And
but that tended to be their... That was their neighbourhood.
About it on social media.
You're talking about celebrities who lived in Pacific Palisades, which has been destroyed. It's an absolute tragedy. Some celebs, some stars, helped out in their own neighbourhoods, having had their homes destroyed. Harry and Meghan drove 200 bloody miles to be there. Look at us in the ashes.
Helping people.
Vanity Fair is not the first, and they certainly won't be the last magazine to humble Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Here's a list at some of the most savage digs at the Duke and Duchess of Sussex from American media. I've seen some of your feedback when Maureen Callahan and I spoke last week about how Harry and Meghan's Hollywood dream is basically dead. Plenty of you disagreed with us. I saw some people saying Meghan is a great producer. The ultimate test will be on March 4th when With Love Meghan premieres on Netflix after it was postponed about 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I am pretty confident in my statement that, you know, you can only go through so many rebrands. And when you have been branded by the media and by sources, former employees, as not very nice, it's incredibly hard to work your way out of that brand, work your way away from that reputation. And it's especially going to be hard for Meghan, who just refuses to acknowledge it. It was Newsweek magazine not too long ago that said maybe she should acknowledge other people's feelings. It's always about her truth, but perhaps it would humanize her or make her a little more digestible if she would just acknowledge that certain people feel wronged by her or her way of communicating or management. And the fact that she refuses to do that is why people have a hard time accepting her in this role that she's trying to convince us to, you know, begging us to buy of her twirling around in stilettos in a kitchen and, you know, $50,000 worth of jewelry on one arm. You know, people, if that was the woman we were initially introduced to, before she sat on Oprah Winfrey and vengefully accused someone of racism, I think it would have been easier to buy. But we have seen years of her complaining about her circumstances. And we've heard from behind the scenes that she's not a kind person. And it's not just Tom Bauer. It's not just Valentine Lowe. Now you're hearing it from The Hollywood Reporter. Now you're hearing it from Vanity Fair. Tom Quinn has reported on it. None of these people have been sued, by the way, from these two incredibly litigious individuals. And they threatened to sue Valentine Lowe. They threatened to sue him and they didn't. So Newsweek did compile a list of some of the negative press that Harry and Meghan have received since moving to the United States. And we're going to take a look at some of the highlights here. The title of this piece is U.S. Magazines That Burst Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's Bubble. What a cute little title. What a cute burst bubble. All right, so now this is from Jack Royston, who I know a lot of you have said in the past. He is a Sussex supporter, but I think we can confidently say that there has been a shift over the last 12 to 24 months, perhaps. Maybe it's not been that long, but Jack's tone has definitely changed towards the Sussexes. You have seen him try to hold them accountable, and you have seen him call them out when he feels like they're not being honest with the public. And he says Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's U.S. empire has been under mounting pressure in recent years after a series of high-profile articles in American magazines. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have long hated the British media and framed their declining popularity in the UK as a product of tabloids poisoning the well of public opinion. Ain't that the truth? However, more recently, US magazines have been the outlets throwing the Sussexes into crisis mode starting in 2022. Well, it's nice that they had a nice little 2-year vacation. Between 2020 and 2022, I also like to refer to this time as plague time. It was in the middle of the plague, where they probably felt a little bit unbothered. But yes, glowing coverage. America was absolutely thrilled. Before we knew what their version of events were, before they sat down with Oprah, it was kind of exciting to imagine Prince Harry and Meghan Markle living here. And I think best case scenario to Americans was that Meghan was homesick and Prince Harry was going to do everything he could to make her happy. And that was kind of romantic at the time. And they had to ruin it. They had to ruin the romance. They had to ruin the mystery by sitting down with Oprah Winfrey and unleashing. And that's it should be one of their biggest regrets professionally. I hope it is, but I doubt it is, because I don't think these two know. What does my mom say? They're butt from a hole in the ground? I don't think they do. Okay. But yeah, and there are still outlets, and you know this to be true, that continue to give them positive press. There are the magazines, we list them every week. Sources tell people there are the magazines that are going to continuously work with them because they love the access they have to these people and they don't want to jeopardize it. And then there are people like Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood that there is a carrot dangled in front of them, knowing that Harry and Meghan dabble in the entertainment world. So could Entertainment Tonight get an interview with Prince Harry? Yeah. I mean, if he would have been at those Netflix upfronts that the comedian were tearing into them at, yeah. I mean, with Harry and Meghan working so much in Hollywood, they probably might do a sit down with Access Hollywood. At least that's what Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight are hoping for. So you see a lot of positive stories on their website and on their socials. But if you read the comments on their socials, or there's that website I've talked about a couple of times on here where you can just Google this, Google how to see YouTube dislikes. There's a website pops up. You can drop the URL in, and then it shows you how many people have viewed the video, how many likes the video has, how many dislikes the video has. And when you go look at an Entertainment Tonight story that's pro the Sussexes, the dislike count is far greater than the like count every single time. Why do they continue to talk about them in a positive way? Because they're hopeful that inevitably they'll have access to them. And that is what they want. They would love to talk to a royal, even if it's not a working royal. Their ultimate objective is access, because they feel like that would elevate them, that would elevate their show, take their show to the next level. Because how often, unless it's Fergie, do you see members of the royal family sit down with kind of those frivolous shows? So Newsweek goes into some of the outlets that have been less than stellar towards the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, starting with The Cut. Don't forget, says The Cut, Meghan and Montecito. From what I understand, Meghan Markle specifically asked for this journalist. This was important to Meghan. It was one of her negotiation demands to give them this exclusive access to her. This exclusive access. She wanted this particular journalist. And boy, did it backfire. It just reminds you of Tina Brown's classic. She is absolutely, what word did she use? At getting it wrong. She's perfect at getting it wrong. I know that is not the exact quote, but it's something similar. So Jack says Meghan and Harry were still highly popular in America in 2022. But, this also, I just want to quickly say, this came out just a few months before the Queen died. So this did start the decline, right? Because once the Queen died, there was a lot of resentment because people started to realize that the last few years of her life were miserable because Harry and Meghan were constantly throwing grenades in the royal family's direction. And likely knowing that she had a limited time on this earth, she just lost her husband. She was fixated on ensuring the future of the monarchy. And with that being her obsession, she has two people perpetually trying to tear it down. And I do think that a lot of people recognized that, and there was some resentment there. So it says they were still popular in 2022, but the first sign the bubble might burst, came that August when New York Magazine's The Cut dispatched Allison P. Davis to Montecito to interview the Duchess. Was it odd to you at all that she chose New York Magazine's The Cut to be her debut magazine? Because there are also stories that Variety had to pause their cover, had to release their cover with Meghan on it after New York Magazine's The Cut, because The Cut had some sort of deal, and that, hold on, Variety, you have to hold off because The Cut gets this first. I would have started on the West Coast. They live in the West Coast. They're trying to impress the West Coast. They just, at the time, had just signed deals with Spotify and Netflix. They needed love from the West Coast. It was odd to me that they chose New York Magazine, but seeing how much they kind of obsess over this global influence brand, I do understand why they went to New York Magazine, because they want to look worldwide. They want to look international. They want to look national. They want to look bigger than they've become, quite frankly. I think that they've cheapened their brand immensely over the last few years. But I imagine that she went to New York Magazine because they were trying to look like this global brand, that they're always using the word global in their communication. I know you remember some of these. They did not even include the funniest quotes from this article, okay? In the Newsweek article, Nelson Mandela, palm trees holding hands, those aren't even included in this article. He says, Jack says, the result was a far cry from the brash hit pieces in UK newspapers like The Sun and the Daily Mail, but there was a strong sense Davis had already chosen not to drink the Kool-Aid. Now she goes into the tiny bachelor producer in her brain. That is one of the quotes that Jack includes in this as an example of The Cut's not buying it. The guttural noises, remember that she's just moaning, is another one of the quotes that Jack includes. At this stage post-royal, there's no need for her to hold back. She's flinging open the proverbial doors to her life. As any millennial woman whose feminism was forged in the girl boss era would understand, she has taken a hardship and turned it into content. I think she's making fun of her there, but I also would stress it's not good content. It's almost like messy monetization, because everything they do, it seems like they do in a hurry, or they do, I shouldn't say a hurry, because look, Limonada was announced a year ago, okay? But they do it in a rush, I should say. Like, I don't think that the Oprah Winfrey interview was well thought out, although we do know that they had talked about sitting down with Oprah before they got married. So the thought was there, but I don't think that they really thought out the consequences of the Oprah Winfrey interview. And I say that because they backpedaled. In the Netflix series, Meghan talks about how she was disappointed that the headline from the Oprah Winfrey interview was the royal racist, allegedly. She wanted it to be her mental health. And then when Tom Bradby asks Prince Harry about royal racism, Prince Harry completely denies it, says they never said that the media created that narrative. Now, we all know that is a complete and utter lie. There was racism discussed in the Oprah Winfrey interview, and you cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube after such an extreme and damaging claim. So that's part of the reason why I think that they just do and don't fully process what the repercussions might be. Messy monetization is how I would categorize whatever this content creation Meghan Markle is doing. Will she improve by March 4th? We're going to have to wait and see. Still on The Cut, another passage read, Meghan, silenced no more, looks around, making sure nobody, who would be, is listening in. Then the top secret drop. I'm getting back on Instagram. She says, her eyes devilish. Gosh, she could not wait. She could not wait to get back on Instagram. She's been chomping at the bit. It says, this could have been a troll delivering a nothing with such gravitas, feels as if Meghan, who has been so trolled by the media, is serving it back just a little. But as I quickly realize, it is actually news. The mismatch between the interviewer and interviewee, this is Jack, is an interesting one because it speaks to a symptom of Meghan and Harry's wider malaise. At times, they have pushed themselves out of the spaces that normally fawn over the royals, but without necessarily working out how to appeal to other audiences. So they do go to The Cut, which has been incredibly critical of Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, in the past. And that was one of our points when we saw that Meghan gave them access to her. We were like, they've been writing this very vulgar content about Prince William. Why would she give access to them? And perhaps that is why Harry and Meghan choose some of these publications. Oh, well, they seem a little bit critical of the royal family, so maybe they'll be on our side. But I don't think they always are. I think that they need to do better due diligence when it comes to who they work with. I think Meghan works with people that she thinks not only will side with her, but also will give her a little bit of credibility. But anybody that truly would give Meghan Markle credibility by working with her is going to see right through her, and they're not going to pander. Back to our Newsweek article, the revelation she was returning to Instagram was indeed a big story for precisely the tabloids. Meghan and Harry have been trying to avoid, but she perhaps should have known. The Cut would expect something of greater substance from a woman who once said she reads The Economist. Okay, now I have spent 18 minutes talking about one section of this article. So for the rest of the article, I will try to blow through it. I'm so sorry. Just looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm only at the top of the article. So Variety, I will say backstory. The title of this Variety piece is It's Well Past Time for Harry and Meghan 2.0. This was written around the time that Harry and Meghan released their docuseries reality show on Netflix. And this is a negative review of that show that was featured in Variety. This is a huge deal that Variety, a trade publication, would give them a negative review of their show because not long before their show was released, shortly after Queen Elizabeth's death, Meghan was featured on the cover of Variety. What was it too? Like Women on the Rise, or I don't even remember what the concept was, but they had just given her this ooey gooey gushy cover where she got to dress up and have, she had videographers there capturing her in slow-mo, taking photos, and the wind blowing her skirts everywhere. She was living for it. So it was kind of a punch to the gut that Variety would be critical of them. And I'm just going to skim through this. Months later, Meghan and Harry released their first Netflix project, a biopic reality show, charting their messy exit from the palace. It soared to the top of the Netflix ranking globally. Okay, it's called Morbid Curiosity. But again, there was a canary in the mine shaft moment when Variety gave it a scathing interview. Now, this is Andrew Wallenstein, and he's talking about, given that they've beaten this horse to death, perhaps this one-trick pony is due for the glue factory. He is judging Harry and Meghan by the fact that they are just unloading everything. Between Spare hadn't come out yet, I don't believe. We hadn't even known about the Todger cream yet. My God. But he's saying in this Netflix series, in the Oprah Winfrey interview, they've given it all away. Boy, was he wrong. Thanks to Spare. But he says, given that they've beaten this dead horse, perhaps this one-trick pony is due for the glue factory. Of course, Harry and Meghan would have you believe they're all about so much more than their own story. The brand they believe they are building through their media company, Archwell Productions, is meant to be about all of the social causes and charities they support. Their game plan has always been, come for the sob story, stay for the high-minded uplift. But that's a shaky strategy for keeping an audience around that probably doesn't care about anything either of them has to say that isn't royal gossip. Savage. And Newsweek is included in this Newsweek article. The title is "The More Prince Harry and Meghan Markle Say, the Less Americans Like Them." And they go into how they partnered with Redfield and Wilton to put together some polling. And really, they've seen that decline in Harry and Meghan's popularity since 2022, over the last few years. It says that it looks like they started to work with them in December of 2022, and they go into some of those numbers, and they believe that the decline was as significant as it was because of Spare and the Elizabeth Arden cream and talking to a trash can while you're, high as a kite. The Hollywood Reporter, why Hollywood keeps quitting on Harry and Meghan. Okay, so you and I have gone over this 1,000 times before, but what they have excluded, because why Hollywood keeps quitting on Harry and Meghan was at the end of last year. But what they've excluded is when the Hollywood Reporter named Harry and Meghan one of the biggest losers of 2023. So the Hollywood Reporter has been on it for a while, right? It says in September of 2024, one of Meghan's biggest scandals went stateside with a piece in the Hollywood Reporter suggesting the couple had a high churn rate because staff thought Meghan was a dictator in heels. One of the best lines ever. If you get that tattoo on your body, will you please send me a picture? Dictator in heels. I love it. Why'd they all leave? The article read. What explains the churn? Everyone's terrified of Meghan. We know this. I won't go into all of this with you, but my God, the Hollywood Reporter, what a frenzy that was after that article came out. Now, here they go into the Vanity Fair piece inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's big business ambitions 5 years after their royal exit. It says most recently, Vanity Fair thrashed out a series of similar claims from Sussex insiders who compared Meghan to a mean girl teenager. They talk about Spotify. Two sources say a colleague with ties to archetypes took a leave of absence after working on 3 episodes, then left Gimlet altogether. Several others described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny. Oh gosh, we've all been there. When you're just like, I'm calling in sick. I need a mental health day. I'm going to say it's diarrhea, but I need a mental health day. They're exiting their job or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan. The long-term therapy claim was pretty intense. I mean, that is, if the divorce rumor had not been included in the Vanity Fair piece, the therapy storyline would have been the storyline stealing all of the headlines. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me in the comments. One staff member described talking behind your back and gnawing at your sense of self. We've all had bosses like that. I think that's why it's so hard to read. And I think that's why it's so believable, because we've had those mean bosses. They tear at you, they tear you down, but they've given you enough love in the past that you work incredibly hard to get back in their good graces because you liked that feeling and you don't like the feeling of being on the outs. And it takes you a while before you go, it's not worth it. And I think that a lot of us really felt these articles in our core because we've worked with people like this before. The accounts make it incredibly difficult for Meghan and Harry and their team of supporters to suggest the bullying allegations from her time at Kensington Palace were a fiction, says Newsweek. What a line. Let's see, what else does it say here? My father, my brother, Kate, and all the rest of the family, they were really welcoming, Harry told Oprah, but it really changed after the Australia tour, after our South Pacific tour. And that is a major problem because of the nature of the narrative they put forward and why they left the monarchy. It was also the first time that the family got to see how incredible she is at the job. The narrative that the relationship between the monarchy and the Sussexes deteriorated because of jealousy is somewhat undermined. However, by the revelation, Meghan was accused of bullying, which serves as a possible alternative explanation for the rift that formed. I mean, yes, I have completely forgotten about Harry and Meghan claiming that it was all about jealousy because it is so ridiculous. That is such a ridiculous claim. I know that there are other there are other articles out there, like these articles. The Wall Street Journal was critical of Harry and Meghan after the Spotify deal went south. Bloomberg poking fun at them. Bloomberg poking fun at them over some of the concepts that they revealed in their article, some of the ideas that Prince Harry had presented to Spotify about hanging out with the Pope and Trump. I mean, good luck. So there have been other outlets. The Wrap was one of the first outlets too that I saw really from in the States talk about Harry and Meghan's turnover. Puck, that incredible new newsletter from one of the former employees at the Hollywood Reporter, talking last year about how Harry and Meghan's deal with Netflix was one of the worst deals in Hollywood history. So there's been more criticism than the publications listed in the Newsweek article, but it did give us a starting point and a jump off point. So many great Princess of Wales stories over the last 48 hours. I adore seeing her out and about again, but I think that we're going, you'll go into this a little bit more heavily, but I'm going to stop myself from talking about her wardrobe from now on, and I won't acknowledge how chic she looked in her most recent Instagram picture.
No, I know. Let's not focus on the coat in this picture. Although I have to say, she looks like she's really wrapped up warm. It was one of those obviously very, very cold winter days. She doesn't want us focusing on the coat. She wants us focusing on her. And this is an Instagram post that that has just dropped ahead of World Cancer Day. So very, very significant, very poignant, and taken by Prince Louis. Of course, he's only 6, so he's taken the camera and taken a photograph of his mother, and she's in some beautiful woodland, I'm sure, in Norfolk. It was taken clearly during the cold winter months, and she's got her arms outstretched, and she's posted this lovely, really, really beautiful image, and she's got this quote that runs with it. It says, "Don't forget to nurture all that which lies beyond the disease." And I think, you know, that will mean so much to so many people. What she's saying is that look beyond the label of cancer here. Look at what else is going on in life. There is so much to be thankful and grateful for. And I think one of the most amazing things that the Princess of Wales has done, you know, following her cancer diagnosis is to really put out that message of optimism and positivity. And I think for anyone going through a cancer diagnosis that's been touched by cancer, and that's 1 in 2 of us, you know, those words will really resonate. She strikes me very much as a beacon of light, a beacon of hope in this, you know, terrible disease which affects so many people. And I think on that journey, so many people can feel isolated. They can feel like there's never going to be any light at the end of the tunnel. There is. And she's really shining her spotlight on this cause to highlight it. To make it real, to make and to make it relatable, you know, and she's showing us that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's just charming that it's a photograph that was taken by Louis. It's lovely that she's recognising World Cancer Day. It comes, as you say, Kinsey, after a really quite busy week for her. We saw her getting back to work and making her first away trip to Wales, where she was visiting a children's hospice, which she has been named the new patron of. She succeeds Princess Diana and the Prince of Wales, now the King, in that role of patron. And she looked great, and she looked wonderful. She looked happy. This is part of her gradual return to work. We're not going to see her sort of carrying out these engagements on a weekly basis, but I think it was very encouraging to see her out and about, and then lovely to have this picture released on Instagram and on their social media channels acknowledging World Cancer Day. It's clearly going to be a very important thing for the King and the Princess of Wales, having gone through their own cancer journeys.
I have to ask you a question, because we found out over the weekend that the Princess of Wales would like for us to focus on her work and less on her wardrobe. Is this at all in response to the story that the Daily Mail reported that Vogue considers the Princess of Wales a fashion icon and they would like to see her on the cover of their magazine? Because how interesting that within a week of those stories, I mean, it's probably less, the Princess of Wales goes, actually, wait, it's not necessarily what I want to be known for. I want to be known for my work.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point, Kinsey, and I hadn't actually drawn that parallel between the story about her being courted for the cover of Vogue and these comments. I had actually wondered if it was more to do with the fact that she feels she's doing her most important life's work around children's hospices, around early years, and now around cancer. You know, and you sort of don't get past the first or second line in most reports about you reading about her Zara high street dress or her Amelia Wickstead coat or whatever. And I sort of find myself as guilty of this, I think, probably as you do, that you think, gosh, why am I writing about this when actually the message that she's putting out there, the work that she's putting out there is so much more important. But of course, you know, pictures speak 1,000 words, they're important. There is, of course, that Kate effect, that what we call the Kate effect in the press, whereby she'll wear something and it sells out immediately. It's interesting because I was thinking back to some of the early years of my coverage of Kate and William when they were the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, when they were newly engaged. And I don't think we were given details of her dresses at that point. I remember finding it really hard. We would be on engagements or on tours, and Kensington Palace deliberately wouldn't give us details of the dresses. Now, someone very clever in the fashion department of the newspapers would always quickly source where the dress was from. And if it was Zara, it would sell out immediately. If it was McQueen, the high street would be doing a knockoff version. But I think perhaps the palace sort of fell into a bit of a habit of giving us that detail to be helpful to us as journalists, because it was hugely helpful. But I wonder if there's been this rethink that actually it's really not necessary. You know, we don't need to know the label of who she's designing by, and they actually want the effort to be put into the message that she's getting across and the important work. And I just make another point as well. It reminded me of when I was researching my book, Kate, the Future Queen. And I remember being told by one of her friends who'd gone to university with her that she was really a very reluctant clothes horse. I mean, I know she did that fashion show, and of course, that's where she caught Prince William's eye on that catwalk. We all remember that. Although she wasn't wearing that many clothes at the time, it was that wonderful see-through dress. But she's never been a huge lover of fashion. That idea of being a style icon was something that really quite eluded her. So she's found her fashion stride. She's found the designers that she loves. She knows what works for her. But I think unlike the late Princess of Wales, Princess Diana, who really was a style icon, who absolutely loved fashion, and I think Kate's a bit different from that. And I can completely understand why she gets a bit frustrated when so many people are commenting on her wardrobe rather than on what she's saying, who she's meeting, or what she's doing.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up Princess Diana, listening to you talk about your experience with Catherine and not getting that information, because I specifically remember in my Diana research that being something that Diana's team ensured that the royal rota had. Here's what she's wearing. And it probably was because she was embracing this role. I also think she had great relationships with some of those designers and enjoyed helping her friends, enjoyed elevating them.
Absolutely.
But there is a real distraction. I remember during the last Invictus Games, every day we'd get a rundown of what Meghan was wearing, and that was the story. And Invictus Games
takes over, doesn't it?
It's such a great cause, and it felt like we barely, we barely touched on that. So
yeah,
I absolutely understand Catherine's request. I'm going to do my best to honor it. But if she looks fierce, I might say something about it.
Well, obviously, Kinsey, for you and I, it will make our job even harder because, of course, we will be having to Google because our editors are going to want to know. And I think the readers are going to want to know. But I think the point is, perhaps it comes a little bit further down the story if it's indeed acknowledged. But like you say, she's wearing something fabulous and wonderful. People are going to want to know where the dress is from. So I think I get where she's coming from, absolutely understand it. But I think, she also has to accept that she's the most photographed woman in the world. She's one of the most iconic women in the world, one of the most famous women in the world. And there is inevitably going to be an interest in her wardrobe. And particularly when you think about the jewels that she wears, because those jewels often have historic importance and they've been passed down through generations of the royal family. And there is always an interest in the tiaras and the diamonds and everything else. So I don't think Kensington Palace is going to be able to get away from it completely. But I think, it's clearly a message out there, and she's just going to want to sort of renose the narrative. And on that point about renosing the narrative, it's interesting, you get this real sense about the Prince and Princess of Wales wanting to control their narrative quite carefully in terms of the stories that are put out there, and the story about Prince William as well, sort of wanting to sort of have a bit more, not influence over the media, but making sure that it's a better working relationship with the media. So there's a story that was in the newspaper about how they recognize there needs to be that bit of give and take between them as public people, but also that recognition within the media that they are also private individuals. It was an interesting timing of that story because, of course, it comes just after Prince Harry has settled with The Sun over allegations of historic illicit news gathering, and we know that Prince Harry accepted a big out-of-court settlement. So it's sort of an interesting time, I thought, for this story to emerge.
You're right. And in this story, I felt like there were details that I'd never thought about of the way that the Prince and Princess of Wales work. That's actually very clever. Richard Palmer says, within earshot of the press pack, they drop charming little stories about their children, whether it's their favorite sports or music or school subjects. That, it's absolutely right, because it's just a quick mention. And it doesn't blow up the internet, but it makes us feel a little bit more invested in the family. We love knowing that, who is it? Tina Turner, Prince William blasts Tina Turner with the kids because he loved it, listening to it. And
AC/DC.
Yeah. So it's just those little moments where we feel more invested in the family, and they're not giving us too much detail, but it's a clever way to keep us engaged. So I did like that, and it also feels like Prince William has a lot of faith in his team at Kensington Palace when it comes to their relationships with the media. And I think that shows leadership when you are able to say, you're better at this than I am. I'm going to let you be in charge. I don't need to be.
Well, they hire these people, don't they, Kinzer, to manage their press, to look after their press. And I think, across the pond, Meghan and Harry could learn a lot from that. What's the point in paying these world-class publicists and comms directors if you're not going to listen to their advice? I think you're absolutely right that, William and Kate, they have a great team around them, as do Harry and Meghan, by the way. It's just William and Kate seem to listen to their team a lot more, I think, than Harry and Meghan have done. I always remember speaking to one of the people who worked, very senior source who worked with the Sussexes, who said, they just didn't want to take the direction and the advice of their PR strategists. And that makes the job of a PR really difficult. Now, William and Kate are, very involved in their social media platforms, in the content. But, I think there's a lot of trust that they put in their press spokespeople. Most recently, I was working on a story about Prince George and the schools that he's going to go on to. And, we'll often get guidance, and particularly when it comes to the children, they'll ask us to be sensitive. They'll explain that a decision hasn't been made. And I think any sort of respected journalist will take that on board. You find a way to write the story that is respectful of those guidelines, and those media guidelines that they put in place regarding their children have been incredibly successful. So, we're hearing little details about the ballet that they enjoy or the music that they listen to, but we're not hearing anything that's going to be seen as intrusive or overly personal. They're giving us little crumbs that, as you say, just sort of satisfy public appetite, gives us a bit of an insight into their lives as a family, but it is not too private, because of course they want privacy. They've made it very clear that they want that privacy, and they put clear guidelines in place. And I think for the most part, it does seem to work.
Evan, we've debated it for months, potentially years. The Daily Mail claims they have the official answer, that Netflix vows to stand by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle after 5 years of absolute frustration, chaos, and misery. What's your verdict? We'll get into some of the details, but I'd love your initial reaction because I got to hear it and I loved it. It was pretty good.
I am skeptical, to say the least. This emanates from a season launch event for Netflix in Los Angeles. And it's the chief content officer of Netflix, Bella Bajaria, obviously telling some journalists who approached her and said, what about Harry and Meghan? Are they for the chop? And Bella Bajaria has delivered a very upbeat kind of message, saying, no, we're very excited to still be working with Harry and Meghan. And she was particularly excited about With Love, Meghan, the cooking lifestyle show that they postponed back in early January and won't come out until March the 4th, which doesn't indicate great excitement to me. Now, she also talked, this woman, Bella Bajaria, about Meet Me at the Lake, the book that Harry and Meghan have optioned to turn into a film. She said it's in development. Well, actually, it's in what they call development hell. Nothing has happened with it at all. Whether or not Meghan finally gets to grips with it, I don't know. But I believe that what we're talking about here is an executive of a big broadcasting company, Netflix, talking up what they're doing. I've been to many an event like this, and I'm sure you have too, Kinsey. You go up to the chief content officer or the chief executive or the marketing director and say, hey, this contract, these programs you've got coming up, are they crap? They never go, yeah, they're really crap and we're really disappointed and we're going to axe their contract. They never ever say this. So, look, I genuinely hope for Harry and Meghan's sake that they hang on to this Netflix contract. But reading between the lines of this story that the Daily Mail has published, let's wait and see. At the very least, Netflix, again, if you read between the lines, what they're kind of saying is, well, we've got With Love Meghan coming out on March the 4th, and we're very excited about that. I think the translation for that is, we've got With Love Meghan coming out on March the 4th, and if that tanks, like Polo did, like everything else they did, they're history, they're gone. So a lot is riding on With Love Meghan still. So, I don't want to be sort of downbeat about this, but I think we're in a holding pattern here. Let's wait and see how With Love Meghan does on March the 4th. And if Netflix are so excited, as Bella Bajaria said, why at this big launch event was With Love Meghan not even mentioned, not trailed, not banner headlined, nothing, not even mentioned. So this was to launch a whole raft of upcoming programs. We've got this.
Well, she was mentioned, Kevin. She was just the butt of the joke. She was mentioned on
yeah,
stage.
but not by Netflix.
Exactly. But she got her mention. I just don't think she liked what the mention that she got.
Yeah. So Netflix are not even putting her in the package. So I'm sure Netflix's attitude is this. Well, yeah, look, we'll stick With Love Meghan out, and we'll see how it goes. If it's a smash hit, hey, maybe we're back in business. But Bella Bajaria also went on to say, yes, fantastic, this take on Meghan, the lifestyle, California, Montecito. Montecito? Yeah. Who cares about Montecito? There's a
where she wants her privacy.
There's a fantastic article in the Sunday Times over here in Britain, just this Sunday gone by, which the writer, very good writer called Kate Glass, she went there and did a great big feature and described it as Montecito as the most boring place she had ever been to in her life. It is a pharmacy store. It is anodyne. It is beige. It is full of very rich white people, and all the people of colour do all the service industries. They're the waiters and the gardeners. I think it's a community that needs to be looked at, actually, in terms of its diversity, because it's kind of non-existent. However, Kate Glass said the most boring place she'd ever been to in her life. I've been there a fair few times when I used to live in LA. I used to go up to Santa Barbara for the weekend, and I can confirm Montecito just makes you want to fall asleep. So if Netflix is saying, oh, everyone's going to be so excited to find out all about Montecito, forget it. It's a cure for insomnia. So her excitement, and she said, oh, it's a great show, and you get to look at it and you think, oh, I gotta make that pasta dish, or pasta dish, as they say in America. No, that's exactly why it's not going to work. Nobody cares about pasta dishes. Nobody cares about Montecito lifestyle. I think it's a very bad concept at the wrong time. I mean, bringing out a program about how to make expensive food for your expensive friends in your expensive mansions at a time when most of America, like in Britain, is suffering from the cost of living crisis is tone deaf, to say the least.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just to jump off what you said, that the chief content officer, there was an hour-long presentation of Netflix's biggest projects for the year. Zero acknowledgement of any Archwell project. So no Meghan, no Meet Me at the Lake. And when they were asked if the movie Meet Me at the Lake was definitely coming out, Netflix insisted it is in development. It is a great book. She had it, and we are happy to do it. That's not an answer. They added, we have things in development. Everyone is excited about what is coming. I mean, it is just Chat GPT not answering a question while saying something, basically just, talking in fluff. Asked where Netflix specifically stood with their deal when it came to Harry and Meghan. Netflix told the Mail, we have Meghan's new show coming out, which is great. It is such a great take on a lifestyle show and showcase for California, Montecito, and nature. It really has great takeaways. I was like, oh my God, I want to really do that pasta. That's really great, easy takeaways on life. I'm really excited about it coming out. Kevin, that's not a yes or a no. That is verbal vomit. That is not a yes or a no. I feel like there's something disingenuous about this entire article to suggest that Harry and Meghan are a complete go, or that anything I just read to you came off as a vow to stand by the Sussexes after 5 extremely difficult years. You remain excited. Of course, you're going to say you remain excited. I'll say this, I'm with you. I'm not saying that I hope anything is lost, because I would never wish anyone any sort of negativity. But if this is a go, and I'm incorrect, that I think that this headline is an exaggeration on somebody just trying to BS their way through an interview, and knowing how litigious Harry and Meghan are, if she did say anything that even remotely came off negative, Meghan would jump at the opportunity to use that to say that's defamation, or the reason my show bombed is because of that one comment made at Netflix's upfronts events. The way that Harry and Meghan's friends said that Netflix took control over the Polo show, so the Polo failure was actually on Netflix, not on Harry and Meghan. But let's say it does work out. It does seem in line with one option that you and I have previously discussed, the case-by-case scenario, or project by project. You bring us a project, we'll consider it. But I think, Kevin, the idea of the mystery development deal is out. There is no return on investment when it comes to the Sussexes. But I think Netflix clearly likes access to royalty. I mean, someone should probably tell them that Fergie is cheaper. I think it's pride. They don't want to look like they've made a bad business decision. And we suspected a commitment when we learned of Netflix's interest in the merchandising aspect of Markle's lifestyle pursuits. But I don't think that this is truly a yes. I think at the end of the day, it's probably like, well, let's try Meet Me at the Lake, and then we'll see what happens. But that mystery business deal, we just want you to sign on the dotted line so that we have exclusivity to you. Why, when you're walking down red carpets for Paramount and you haven't promoted a single project for us? And then also, to your point, really quickly, I want to say, I've driven around Hollywood. There are no billboards for Meghan. There were billboards for Harry and Meghan. There are no billboards for With Love, Meghan.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, when Netflix first signed the Gruesome Twosome up, what was it, 3-4 years ago, that was a good kind of business maneuver. They were in the news. Everybody was fascinated by them. How was their life going to be in America? They'd just done Megxit. They were making headlines all over the world. I can see why Netflix signed them up. Now, here we are in 2025. And, make no mistake, Netflix are extremely disappointed with what they've got out of their relationship with Harry and Meghan. I mean, Meghan's done her best, but it hasn't been particularly productive. I mean, Harry has been a disaster for them. And any organisation in the world of media that, for example, made that series Polo, Harry's series Polo, and look at that disaster. No organisation in the media is going to go, oh, that's great, we're still very excited about these two. They're going to be going, hang on, that was the tank of the year. That was an absolute catastrophe. This couple, I don't know. As you say, they bring them a project and they're interested, yes, maybe. You know, that would always be worth doing. But as a lot of publicists, image makers, executives in Hollywood are now saying, after the consistent allegations of serious bullying of staff against Meghan in Britain and in Montecito, and the recent 8,000-word destruction of her as a boss by Vanity Fair magazine, people in Hollywood are going, this too, they are literally saying, this pair are absolute poison. They are toxic. And no media company wants to gather around toxic people. So here's where I'd say Netflix are. They are prepared to roll the last dice with Love Meghan. And who knows, maybe it'll be a massive international hit, at which point they might do more projects with her. But if it flops, you know, forget it. That's where I would say Netflix are at. And they won't be signing another $80 million, $100 million contract. Because although they got some stuff out of Harry and Meghan for that money, it wasn't enough. And now they're still in receipt of this enormous amount of money. And what are we looking at, really? A stupid little cooking show, you know, freezing edible flowers into ice cubes and making pasta. And a movie that isn't.
Which you can get on TikTok. You don't have to wait till March 4th to get some of the BS that she's put on the show. You can get it on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram within seconds. There's nothing original about this, which is why it's so funny that this lady is trying to brand this as some miraculous discovery, this show. It's like, if I want to make a good pasta, it's as simple as a Google search. You know, it's not like Meghan is presenting us with anything that is unique. But you covered entertainment for years. You lived in Hollywood. And I want to ask you about this. Netflix has a reputation for frequently canceling shows prematurely, often after just 1 or 2 seasons, which leads to significant backlash from fans who feel that many of their shows, good shows, are cut short before they have a chance to fully develop and reach their potential. And this is primarily due to Netflix's data-driven approach, is what they call it, to decide which shows to renew based on viewership numbers, even if a show does have a dedicated fan base, or, you know, like that cult-like fan base. Newsweek points out the challenge is verifying these numbers because Netflix is so secretive regarding viewership for their shows. And you know, they compile their own most watched lists internally, but we don't have access to this. Business-wise and industry-wise, does it reflect negatively on Netflix? We don't have the numbers. They did give us the numbers for Harry and Meghan's initial show. They've been incredibly secretive about Heart of Invictus, Live to Lead, Polo. Industry-wise, will other people in the streaming industry frown upon Netflix, you know, cutting some really incredible shows like Lock and Key, some really creative, fun shows prematurely, but hanging on to this couple that seem incredibly problematic, dramatic, and with a questionable work ethic, almost lazy and not creative?
Well, they're going to be subjected to what everybody else is subjected to. I mean, the media now, broadcasting, is a numbers job. You can see exactly how many people are watching, when, for how long. Engagement's very important. If you get an hour-long drama, you'd be surprised how many people don't bother watching it for the hour. Most broadcasting companies are very happy if they watch for 20 minutes out of 60. They go, well, that's good. So these are all the statistics that they're taking on board. So time and time again, you're going to get big fans of very good shows who are furious because Netflix just axed them because they're not getting the numbers. It's ruthless. Now, Meghan is going to get subjected to that kind of really dangerous scrutiny. I mean, minute by minute, second by second. They do it in my business as well. We are monitored second by second by second. You can watch exactly what the audience is doing. And so I do a nightly show that you're often on, Kinsley, and they are watching the graph exactly what the audience. If you say something they don't like, the graph will go like that. If you're doing a topic they don't like, it will go like that. And then if you're doing a topic they do like, they go like that. So they go, yes, more of that, more of that, more of that. Stop doing that, more of that, more of that. That's what it's like now. And Netflix are no exception to that syndrome. They are watching not just minute by minute, second by second about global engagement to shows. And the question for Meghan is, will she pass that extremely onerous test? It's going to be tough, I think.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I read that article as it's done. Netflix is standing by Harry and Meghan, but you and I are both saying we don't believe that to be true, based on the fact that, well, let's jump into this article I sent you from December of 2024, Netflix exhausted by Meghan Markle. And this is regarding Meghan's influence on the Polo show. Amid the failure of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's 5-part documentary about Polo, sources admit Netflix executives are exhausted by working with Meghan Markle, and her future at the streaming giant rests on her make or break cooking show. I think you and I, despite the fact that this was written in December, are still here. This is still how we feel. We're not writing this off as a done deal. Harry and Meghan and Netflix are comfortable together moving forward. You know, the Daily Beast mentions that Harry and Meghan promised content that informs but also gives hope. What the hell about freezing flowers gives you hope? Other than you might have some ice water later in the day. I hope I have some ice water in my Stanley Cup. Truthful and relatable, there was nothing truthful about portions of their original docuseries that were fact-checked after it aired. Some of it was, the palace was like, we literally do not have the gallery up that you're claiming we have. That is racist. So some of it was not even remotely truthful, and they didn't have a fact checker on it. But it said, this article that appeared in December really went into some experts in Hollywood. The lack of proper visible press campaign for a series from Harry and Meghan raises an eyebrow, to say the least, with Sean McNulty. This is a producer in Hollywood, and that was about Polo. And you're telling us you're super hyped about Meghan Markle's show, and no billboards, no mention at your upfronts. You know what? I just feel like we're being lied to, I guess. And while I understand they have to do it, there's a portion of me that's really resentful that we have to tolerate it, you know?
Well, you know, I mean, I think Netflix, to be fair, I mean, you know, you go to these events, be it Netflix, be it NBC, be it Disney, whatever. You don't go up to executives and say, what do you think of this show that you've got coming up in March? What do you think? They never turn around and go, oh, that crap, you know.
Yeah.
They always talk everything up. So I wouldn't go. Netflix are just being typically showbiz enthusiastic about their own content, even though privately we know they've got their serious doubts. They're never going to talk it down. However, this is the situation we are in. Just to reiterate, this is a holding pattern. Netflix couldn't really give much of a damn about With Love, Meghan. Otherwise, they wouldn't have delayed it for 2 months. But they have. When it comes out on March the 4th, Netflix's attitude is purely, you know, let's roll the dice. If people watch it, great. If it's a hit, great. But if it's not, That's what we expected. Sayonara, goodbye. It was the. I mean, look at Polo. I mean, look, the Polo. Where was Harry? Where were Meghan? Where were they? Why did they not promote that? There was no publicity for that whatsoever. When is Meghan?
And just to your point too, the Daily Beast pointed out that Harry and Meghan's friends, who often do promote things on their behalf, like Jam, have either done nothing or very little to promote their Netflix projects. I guess Nacho Polo only posted about the Polo show 3 times is a comment that they made. But yeah, I mean, they don't. You could even ask your friend. I mean, Prince Harry gave Nacho a platform that he hadn't had since the early 2000s, when he was apparently the sexy polo player. I don't know. I was too busy watching The Hills. Apparently, I missed the polo phase, but Prince Harry gives them this platform. You would think they would be going crazy about how excited they were for the opportunity online. Their friends aren't even promoting their content.
And you wonder, I mean, we've got a couple of months to go. What is it now? No, a month really now, isn't it? Before With Love Meghan gets unleashed on an unsuspecting public. What is she going to do? Where is the PR? Where is the publicity? Is she going to give some interviews, or is she going to do all this pretend privacy-loving crap again? You know, the privacy that she yearns for, that the people of Montecito have complete contempt for her about. You know, that they yearn for privacy, but they also yearn for publicity. Well, the publicity that the gruesome twosome yearn for is just personal. It's about them. It's just like, oh, what do we look like together? You know, now they're apparently going to be seen more together in public, having not been seen together. It's all about them. It's not about the products that they're putting out there. So is she going to push With Love Meghan, or is it just going to be like Polo? It's just going to come out. Because if it just comes out, that is an even stronger indication that Netflix are neither here nor there about it.
That's a really good point. Because we did see her push archetypes. She appeared on multiple magazine covers. She wanted archetypes to work, and we saw her market herself and market archetypes. And she had a billboard in Times Square. So really quickly, before I let you go, I want your reaction to this. Tony Case, a marketing expert, told the Daily Beast, the critics have universally slammed Polo. Harry and Meghan are box office poison. Of course, everyone is running away from it in every direction to not pick up the stench of this colossal bomb. He added, from a brand perspective, I'm not really sure anything can be done at this point to reverse consumers' obvious apathy towards the Sussexes. They set out to conquer America, but nobody here, it turns out, found them or what they're peddling to be particularly compelling. I feel like that is a very good description of what's going on even now, still with Love Meghan. Do you agree? And do you agree with his assessment that there's no way for them to reverse this feeling in the States, the ick that the States seem to have with them right now?
I think it's a very tough assessment, but I think it's on the money. I think it's absolutely right. You know, those two came to America with the world at their feet, because everybody was talking about them, everybody was writing about them, making headlines all over the world, all over the television, all over the radio. You know, they were big news. Now, their job was to capitalize on that, to stay interesting, to stay fascinating, to stay in the news. They haven't done that. And I think it's because they're actually, when you boil it right down, they're both pretty boring. Meghan can't open her mouth without sending everyone to sleep. She's a dullard. She's a worthy dullard. She thinks entertainment is in doing worthy things, you know, in helping the world, helping people. I'm all for that, but that isn't entertaining. Harry's not entertaining because he couldn't give a damn, because he's never had to really do a day's work in his life. He was made from the day he was born. So he finds motivation almost impossible. How can he be motivated? If you don't have to make your own money, why? Why bother? She is motivated not by money, but because she wants to be famous. But she does not know how to hang on to that elusive entity that is fame. She's lost it. And I think that assessment is exactly right. America, indeed Britain, indeed the world looks at her and says, at both of them and say, well, what have they got to give? Their story is no longer compelling, and they are not producing anything that is particularly fixating, that particularly makes me want to watch. So I would say good luck with Love Meghan on March the 4th, Meghan, because God knows you're going to need it.
Can I just make one more point before you go? I feel like you and I've had this discussion before, but I do feel like the way they could reverse this is if she would embrace her inner bee. And you know how those shows, those reality shows where the nanny's like really mean, or Kelly Catrone, who is a tough PR, tough fashion publicist in New York, she had a show and it was like people like ducking her and dodging her because she was such a tough, terrifying boss. That's the entertainment we would accept from Meghan Markle.
You mean reality show? A reality show, fly on the wall, with filming Meghan bullying her staff, reducing grown men to tears. I'd watch that. I'd watch that.
Exactly. But I'm being completely serious. Like, I think that I just think that one of the reasons everything she's trying isn't working is because there's nothing authentic about Meghan trying to help the world with another pasta dish.
It's exactly what you and I talked about this on my show last night. It's exactly the problem. Meghan lives in a world where she thinks that the truth about her doesn't matter. The truth can be created by publicists and image makers. So the truth that she wants created is she's a wonderful person who cares about people, wants to make the world a better place, goes down to the Los Angeles fires just to help people. My publicists can make people believe this. Well, to an extent, but you get away with bad deeds once in showbiz. You might just about get away with them twice. 3 times, you're unlucky. It's unlikely. That's 3 times serious bullying allegations. And people think that that is the truth about her. So once again, this is Meghan believing that she can push her truth onto the public and get them to believe she's a lovely person. The problem is that Meghan will never get it through her thick head that her truth is not the truth.